Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Testing 1 2.
tell people it's a public hearing. I gotta get Howard's.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to welcome you to the special meeting of the Portsmouth City Council for the purpose of opening the public hearing during this budget process. I would ask that you, councilors, you're going to eventually come up here and sit behind where the screen is, but obviously that wouldn't make sense now, so if you sit down front, and folks are coming in, so I'll just speak for a little bit. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask the city clerk to call the roll. I'm going to just speak briefly about the public hearing, and then the city manager will kick off the presentations of the departments. After that, I will open the public comment session. I'll read the notice, talk about the rules of the public hearing at that time, and we can proceed. So with that, I'll ask City Clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Farini,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh, Councilor Lister, Councilor Hetmanik, Councilor Spear, Councilor Dwyer, Councilor Coviello, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, the city manager is going to come forward and begin the presentation, but let me just say to the members of the public who are present that we will have the public comment session after the public hearing, and we will begin it. The public hearing will then be reconvened later in the budget process at the end, once we have gone through the departmental budget work session, so that people have an opportunity to speak again. And that is essentially our process. So with that, I will now introduce our city manager, John Bohenko.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening. Tonight's public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2012 budget covers expenditures for all city services, including schools, police, fire, recreation, library, public works, and other municipal departments for the period of July 1, 2011 through June 30th, 2012. In accordance with Article 7 of the City Charter, I formally submitted this budget to the City Council on April 8th. Tonight's public hearing will include presentations from myself, along with the police and fire chiefs, the superintendent of schools, directors of library, public works, and recreation. Back in December, the City Council requested that all departments not increase their FY12 operating budget over their FY11 spending level. This mandate essentially created a flat budget from FY11 to FY12. Also, the City Council requested a goal of no tax increase for fiscal year 12. This budget, as proposed, achieves both those goals, but not without significant impacts on services, which I will elaborate on later. As stated earlier, the City Manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 12 was submitted as requested by the departments in accordance with the City Council's directive from December. The operating budget of $68.4 million finances expenditures associated with the day-to-day operations and services provided by municipal, police, fire, and school departments, and represents a decrease of $157,000 from FY11, exceeding the City Council's goal of a flat operating budget. The non-operating budget of $18 million consists of expenditures for debt service, overlay, capital outlay, county tax, contingency, debt-related expenses, and other non-operating expenditures, and represents an increase of $309,000 over FY11. The total FY12 general fund budget, both operating and non-operating, totals $86.4 million and reflects an increase of $152,000, or less than 0.2% over FY11. The next chart depicts the submitted budgets from municipal, police, fire, and schools as requested by the City Council to be at or below the original approved FY11 operating budget. For the police and fire departments, the decreases are a result of contract increases negotiated late in FY11 that the departments are absorbing in their FY12 operating budget. It should also be noted that for municipal, police, fire departments, reductions in force and other changes over the past 3 years have resulted in a proposed fiscal year 12 budget that is below the fiscal year 09 funding levels as depicted in this chart. The departments work diligently to prepare level-funded FY12 budgets with the goal of continuing critical services. However, they face considerable challenges in the following areas. In salaries, city services are labor-intensive, therefore personnel costs comprise 84% of the operating budget. For the fourth consecutive year, the budget was developed without final approval of 5 15 collective bargaining agreements that expired on June 30th, 2008. The department submitted budget requests without cost of living adjustments for these remaining 5 contracts, but included step increases for employees who have not reached top step in their job classifications. Although it is difficult to anticipate the potential negotiated impacts from the remaining 5 contracts, I'm recommending $900,000 be set aside in a separate line item within the operating budget for this purpose. In order to meet the City Council's goal of no tax increase, it is necessary for me to recommend the following staff reductions. In the Finance Department, the elimination of 1 full-time position, an elimination of a full-time position in the Planning Department. In the Legal Department, a reduction of 1 full-time position to part-time. In Public Works, elimination of 1 full-time vacant position and a reduction of 1 full-time position to part-time. In the Police Department, 5 non-ranking officers to be unfunded. In the Fire Department, fire inspector position to be unfunded. School Department, a reduction of approximately 12 full-time equivalents. In the Sewer Division, the elimination of 1 full-time position. As you can see, this is a total of 25.5 positions that will be reduced in FY12, which will bring the total level over 3 years to a reduction of approximately 64 positions, or approximately 9% of the city's workforce. The next area that I would like to talk about is the New Hampshire retirement system. The New Hampshire retirement system, under the provisions of current law, has announced an increase in the city's contribution rates for all full-time personnel. Although the proposed budget includes a reduction of 25 full-time positions, the increase in rates contribute to the retirement costs, which exceed $4.2 million in FY12, or $435,000 more than fiscal year 11. This does not include retirement impacts associated with salary adjustments that have been yet to be negotiated. In addition, the legislature is considering proposals to eliminate the state subsidy, which could further and dramatically increase the state's share. And as you can see on the next on this chart here, you can see where right now the state has substantial subsidies for police, fire, and for teachers. Any reduction in this would add on to the city's liability. In the area of health insurance, the New Hampshire Local Government Center Health Trust has announced a 12.5% increase in the health insurance premium rate for fiscal year 12, resulting in a total premium cost of $12.8 million. The city employees' share will be approximately $2.3 million, or about 18% of the total cost, leaving the city's portion at almost $10.5 million. In accordance with the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund policy, the annual appropriation amount for each department is determined by the average increase of health insurance rates over 10 years. For fiscal year 12, the impact on departments would have been an increase of 9.5%. However, due to a large reduction in full-time positions proposed in the FY12 budget, the total general fund health appropriation is $155,000 less than fiscal year 11. County tax. The City of Portsmouth has annually assessed its portion of the Rockingham County budget based on the city's share of the equalization of property value for the entire county. In FY12, it is estimated that Portsmouth will pay approximately $4.2 million to Rockingham County. This chart displays both the actual county tax and the city paid in the past and the proportion of the Portsmouth equalized value in the entire county. As you can see on the red line that is along with the bars, you can see that we have a higher proportional share in fiscal year 12 compared to previous years. Not only if we have an increase, we will also pay a higher proportional share for the county. Right about now, we are about 10% of the entire county budget. In addition to 25 positions that have been eliminated in the fiscal year 12 budget, it is necessary for me to recommend the following to achieve the goal of no tax increase in fiscal 12. No new rolling stock purchases in fiscal year 12, with the caveat that continuing this step for more than 1 year could result in even greater risk of higher financial costs in the future from failure to replace aging vehicles and equipment. No new bond authorizations from the general fund for fiscal year 2012. A reduction in capital outlay from fiscal year 2011. Despite difficult economic circumstances, it is essential that we assure that the city's basic infrastructure is maintained in order to avoid larger costs in the future. After being reduced in the 2 prior fiscal years, the general fund appropriations for capital projects was restored to $1.2 million target in FY11. However, the Planning Board recommended the expenditure of $1 million for FY12 in recognition of fiscal constraints. The $1 million would be combined with about $11 million in grants and other matching funds and other programs to support ongoing projects and to initiate those that are most needed. This would result in a substantial amount of leveraging with the $1 million that we provided in the general fund. This chart provides a history of capital outlay in the general fund, including the FY12 proposed capital outlay of $1 million as adopted by the City Council in March. The average expenditures for capital outlay over the last 8 years is approximately $1,050,000. The next chart shows the details for the capital projects that are proposed for FY12. At this time, I'd like to ask the police chief to come forward to talk about the FY12 impacts on his department. And after the police chief speaks, there'll be other various department heads to give their presentations. And after they've done that, I'll give a brief outline of the revenue side of the budget, and then turn it back to the mayor to open it up for a public hearing. At this time, I'd like to introduce the police chief. Chief?
Good evening. Thank you, City Manager Bohanko, and good evening to the council. I have been asked by the elected police commission and the city manager to present a snapshot of the police budget. First, I'd like to introduce to you the elected police commissioners that are here today. Commissioner Gollum and Commissioner Russo are in the audience today. Since 1654, police officers have existed in Portsmouth in one fashion or another. That's over 350 years of policing this great city. Portsmouth was not always the model city that we are today, with our 21,000 residents sharing the community with over 46,000 people who come to work, learn, and play here every day. We have over 180,000 people visiting Prescott Park each summer, and we serve 1,800 hotel rooms to accommodate our rich businesses, along with tourists, travelers. Our restaurants and bars provide year-round entertainment, and just this past year alone, the city has added 7 more liquor licenses to accommodate 2,000 additional restaurant seats. The City Council has also approved several new weekend events that will bring in even more people to visit. We are responsible for the safety of not just those who live and work here, but those who visit. Equally important is our duty to protect the reputation of Portsmouth as being a safe place. We are trusted with the 24/7, 365 community service providers for everything from emergency response and criminal investigations to simply helping an elderly person abandoned by her family with getting some needed services. I have been asked to provide a briefing on how we are tracking. What is the police department concerned with going into the next year? First, I must underscore that Portsmouth is a very safe community. We enjoy a great quality of life that our neighbors envy. We have it all, and we enjoy it safely because of our great citizens and the work of your police officers. But we also have our problems. Some of the things we track from this past year is our felony indictments going up, identity thefts going up with the economy problems, drug investigations have gone up significantly. We're also seeing some of the push down from the state cuts and county cuts as far as troopers. We now only have 1 liquor investigator for the whole entire Rockingham County. It's hard for us now to get a state trooper to respond to the city without having a 20 to 45-minute lag time. Our motor vehicle activity has gone down, yet we see our accidents going up. This is especially frustrating for me because if there's one correlation in law enforcement that we know, and that is with more motor vehicle activity, you have greater public safety when it comes to motor vehicle activity. Protective custody, these are our drunks. Drunken arrests are up, rapes, burglaries, and liquor licenses and seats have gone up. The sliding economy, reductions in the workforce, and removal of crime prevention program funding has brought about some significant changes in our community workload. We understand that the community decides how much protection it wants to pay for, and that this decision is directed by the community through the elected city council. We understand that it is the community that sets its policing expectations, and we will continue to be responsive to that. The past 10 years have shown the police department responding to these diminished revenues. We have reduced the number of police ranking officers, the number of civilian staff positions, the detective division, and for the past 2 years, the uniform patrol officers. In short, the police department has reduced the full-time staff by 12 full-time positions, along with 3 part-time positions. This year, we are unfunding 5 police officer positions. Our fixed cost for FY12 is an increase of $410,000, broken down in the slide that you see here. The council had requested from the Police Commission a 0 increase budget submission, and the commission instructed me to meet that goal. Taking into account the previous 10 years of program and personnel reductions, the senior staff agreed with me that the only way to achieve a reduction of over $400,000 would be through attrition of police officer positions and layoffs. This is the only way to get to this number. It has to come through salary reductions. Last year, we spoke to the council at the various work sessions of our department collapsing into a core mission of providing emergency response and investigating crimes, and this year continues along that mission. This year, we will need to unfund 5 police officer positions, including our walking downtown beat and our traffic enforcement. Combine this with our last 2 years of funding, and you will see an unfunding of the police budget by $850,000 to include 8 police officer positions removed. I want to state that I understand that the community tells us what they want for police services, and I will be obedient to their wishes. I also want to make sure that we have good dialogue and that the community understands the impacts of their decisions to reduce. In order to help put things into perspective, let's look at a comparison of what an 11% reduction of police officers would look like for other communities. And in this, we just show that various communities, not that I'm comparing Portsmouth to New York City, I'm just trying to show that an 11.7% reduction in New York City equals 4,000 officers, and surely New York City would understand or would see the impact of losing 4,000 police officers. I'm suggesting it's very similar to us losing 8. My goal tonight is to explain the 0 budget, and our ability to provide the same services to the community will be impossible. We cannot continue to make structural changes as we have in the past 10 years without at some point it affecting our level of service. No matter the decision made by the council, the police department stands ready to provide the best we can in keeping Portsmouth a unique and safe place to visit and live. Thank you, councilors, city manager, city attorney, and the people of Portsmouth for your participation in your police department. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you the director of the library, Mary Ann List.
Thank you. The Portsmouth Public Library was established by city ordinance in 1881 as a free public library for the use of all of our citizens. By our mission, we operate as a gateway to reading, information, culture, community information, and our cultural heritage. The library is a true shared resource for everyone in the community. Over the past few years, the library has developed into a place to learn together, to relax together, to enjoy the community of others, a place to discuss topics of importance to us locally and globally. We have worked with library staff and administration, with library trustees, and with city administration to develop goals for the time period to be funded by the FY12 budget. Working with a great deal of information, we have established 3 main goals. The first is to maintain the current hours of operation, to keep the doors open 7 days a week, 9 months out of the year, and 6 full days a week during the summer. The second main goal is to provide the materials that people are looking for in appropriate formats. And the third main goal is to continue to work with the people of Portsmouth to build community. We are planning in 3 areas of service. The first is our traditional services. That's the books, the magazines, the recordings, all of the things that have been associated with the library over the years. The second area that we are planning in is services related to technology. So that's information that is produced electronically, but it is also the 40 computers that are available in the library for the public to use. It's the Wi-Fi network that is accessed free of charge throughout the building. The third area that we are planning in, and this is very important in the Portsmouth Library, is our community connection. It's in this area that we plan hundreds of programs for people of all ages, and it's also in this area that we plan for the use of meeting rooms for other groups in the community so that they can share the knowledge that they are creating with the rest of us. When we look at trends in use of the Portsmouth Public Library over the past several years, we see steady growth in standard points of reference, such as the number of people coming into the library, the number of items that they check out to take home, and the number of reference questions fielded by our staff. For FY12, we're also looking at such measures as more than 15,000 individuals who have logged onto the public computers in the first half of FY11, and likewise more than 2,100 unique devices that have accessed the wireless network during that time period. There are some special factors influencing library planning for FY12. The first is the economy. Traditionally, when people experience a decrease in discretionary income, they turn to the public library to fill the gap. In this particular slowdown, we've seen it even more than before. The second is the high number of Americans reported to be online, either at home, at work, at school, or in some shared environment, such as a community center or a public library. The third is the increased number of Americans with library cards. 68% of Americans are reported to have library cards. In Portsmouth, that's about 80%. And once again, very importantly, in Portsmouth, the important role that the library plays in community building. The funding that we're asking for in FY12 is $1,480,315, spent largely in 3 categories: personnel, building operations, and materials. The remaining $83,000 is used to run the business of the library, to present all of our public programs, to train our staff, and to operate the library-specific computer program that operates the library services in the public library and in the 5 public school libraries in Portsmouth. Looking at budget trends for the library, halfway through FY07, we moved into the new building. Halfway through FY08, we instituted Sunday hours. By FY09, we were operating in a much improved facility with greatly increased services and a full schedule of library hours open to the public. For the next 4 years, we have met the major budget goal of level funding. The current budget, the FY11 budget, is actually $1,500 less than the FY10 budget. We have accomplished that level funding by reorganizing staff, reassigning duties, and cutting staff hours while keeping our purchasing level. In the FY12 budget, we will reduce spending on materials by more than $18,000 so that we can maintain a full schedule of service hours. I thank you and introduce to you Steve Parkinson, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mary Ann. The Public Works Department budget provides funding for the Highway Division operations of the department. These include the following areas of responsibility: municipal buildings, such as the municipal complex, whereby the department provides electricity, natural gas, repairs to structural, electrical, plumbing, HVAC systems, elevators, emergency generators, janitorial supplies, as well as custodial services. In the highway portion, we deal with the sidewalks and streets, street trees, storm drain system, pavement repairs, street cleaning, as well as traffic control devices, traffic signals, traffic signs, pavement markings, and bridge maintenance. In the snow area, and hopefully we've seen the last of that for this season, we deal with all the streets, sidewalks, and publicly owned parking lots, dealing with plowing, salting, removal. We deal with equipment maintenance, where we deal with a fleet of cars, light trucks, dump trucks, heavy equipment, specialized equipment, small engines such as lawnmowers, weed whackers, chainsaws, as well as gasoline and diesel distribution to not only the Public Works Department, but the police, fire, school, as well as the Portsmouth Housing Authority. We deal with solid waste, household collection done every week, curbside, as well as bulky waste collections, yard waste, and downtown Monday night evening collection in the Central Business District. We also deal with the curbside recycling program throughout the city and the operation of our recycling center, where we take a myriad of materials, whether it be motor vehicle waste such as oils, antifreeze, batteries, CFC removals from air conditioners, refrigerators, freezers, tires, electronics, books, tapes, CDs, clothing, cooking oil, just to name a few. We deal with parks and ball fields, maintaining the infrastructure of the city, as well as playgrounds and historic cemeteries throughout the city. We deal with 74 sites around the city with an acreage of 326 acres. We have 9 playgrounds, 4 historic cemeteries, 10 parks and ball fields, adopt-a spots all over, and ornamental sites. We deal with 37 acres of roadside mowing, as well as the 22 parking lots mentioned previously and 14 building sites. Other major categories, just to give you some numbers: street and sidewalk maintenance, 136 road miles, as well as 75 miles of sidewalks; street tree maintenance, highway signs and striping, bridge maintenance for the 16 city-owned bridges; parking lot maintenance, storm drain maintenance for 114 miles of pipeline and 5,000 catch basins. We deal with all of the special events that take place in the city, whether it be setup, breakdown, and cleanup. And there, once again, the household trash pickup, bulky waste, yard waste, roadside recycling, recycling center, trash removal from our parks and playgrounds. The Public Works Department is a maintenance budget based upon the historical trends for maintaining the various elements as previously described. 59% of our budget is comprised of full and part-time salary, benefits, and overtime for the 60 people assigned to this area of the department. These personnel are involved in all aspects of the work responsibilities. The same people who pick up the trash or recycling also plow snow. The same people that maintain the parks, playgrounds, also repair sidewalks and patch the streets. The people in this recycling center not only operate that facility, but also do yard waste and bulky waste pickup curbside. The proposed Public Works budget for FY12 is approximately $92,000 less than what the budget was in FY09. The Public Works Department continuously strives to reduce costs by utilizing modern technology and innovative methods. Examples of this would be the increased use of LED or light-emitting diode bulbs or compact fluorescent-type light fixtures where appropriate, such as in traffic lights or in the period light fixtures throughout the downtown areas. Recently, the department changed out high-usage lighting in our vehicle repair and truck storage facility to new technology fluorescent, obtaining better visibility with lower operating costs. Another example in reducing our operating costs would be the combining together with other municipal departments to procure electricity and natural gas at bulk rates, roughly 7% below the standard PSNH or Unitil rates. As I stated previously, the department continues to reduce expenses with these types of changes to allow the department to continue to provide the levels and types of service the public requests and expects within the budgetary appropriations. My pleasure now to introduce Recreation Director Russ Wilson.
Thanks, Steve. Russ Wilson, Recreation Director. I'm going to speak for about 4.5 minutes, and if you remember nothing else, please remember this. Our FY10 budget in the Recreation Department was $1,127,000. Our FY12 budget for the Recreation Department is $761,000, a reduction of $366,000. That's about a 33% reduction. Our full-time staff also went from 8 full-time people to 4 full-time people. And let me show you how we made those reductions and what we're doing today with 50% less full-time staff. Our blueprint for the last year and a half has been the Recreation Needs Study, which the City Council authorized a couple of years ago. We brought in experts from all over the country to have them look at our facilities and programs and give us a recreation blueprint for the future. Their main conclusion was that we have too many old buildings, spread out facilities, and we need to consolidate and modernize to be more energy and programmatically efficient. We started with the indoor pool, partnering with the SIP organization. We reduced all the full-time staff. We raised fees. We reprogrammed and made that facility much more energy efficient with the hopes of little to no city subsidy for operating costs. While we have not fully attained that goal, we have reduced the operating loss by about 70% over the past year or so, and currently there are no funds allocated for the pool in fiscal year 12. With the Recreation Needs Study as a guide and consolidation as a goal, we transferred the management and financial responsibilities of the Greenleaf Recreation Center to the Portsmouth Housing Authority. We've maintained our programming at that facility, but we've maintained supervisory and maintenance responsibility for the skateboard park, and there are currently no funds allocated for Greenleaf in fiscal year 12. The Connie Bean Center is our 100-year-old youth center where we currently use only the first floor. The basement and second and third floors are closed for life safety issues. We run all of our indoor youth programs out of this facility, and we are in desperate need of an upgrade of this facility. We run all kinds of athletic programs from kindergarten through high school, all kinds of special events, Halloween dances, middle school dances, father-daughter dances, mother-son dances, and numerous other special events and organized activities. Spinnaker Point Recreation Center is our adult center with about 1,400 to 1,500 members. We just recently allowed non-residents of Portsmouth to join that facility with hopes of making this facility self-sufficient in the next year or two. These are some of the activities we offer there: cardiovascular equipment, weights, running track, small indoor swimming pool, basketball and volleyball. And again, we run all our adult leagues out of this facility. The Pierce Island Outdoor Pool is our summer gym. We're open for 9 weeks, offering free swim lessons for Portsmouth children and open swims, which on many days top out at over 1,000 people over the course of the afternoon and evening. Again, free swim lessons for Portsmouth residents all summer long. And the chief was very observant during our run through this afternoon. Police chief, he said, "Are they fishing in the pool?" And yes, they are. This is part of our water carnival event, so no safety issues or cleanliness issues with real fish, chief. We also run the Pierce Island Boat Launch. It's free for residents. We can accommodate anywhere from, you see in the lower picture, 6 to 8 boats at any given time. Summer recreation programs, we've got a variety of them, from tennis lessons golf classes, golf lessons. We run a summer camp program, about 50 kids per week, 9 weeks, about 450 kids during the summer. Our track team, all kinds of soccer leagues and soccer camps. Something we started in the recent years, surfing lessons and surfing programs. All kinds of sports leagues from wiffle ball, t-ball, girls softball, older baseball, adult leagues and adult softball, and basketball leagues all through the summer. In the fall, we also started numerous leagues all through the fall, all kinds of soccer programs, co-ed programs, girls programs, special events. We run everything from the Easter egg hunt we help with the holiday parade, the logistics, 4th of July fireworks, and we assist with just about every special event in the city. 5 years ago, we took on the responsibility of PHS athletics. At PHS, we're responsible for 54 teams, 1,000 participants, and 65 to 70 coaches. We've had a fabulous 5 years, and the synergy between the school and city departments has been absolutely outstanding. It's made scheduling easier, capital improvement easier, and all the coordination between the two departments much, much easier. And in the past 5 years, PHS varsity sports teams have been in 30 championship games, which makes my life much easier. So again, we do all that with 33% smaller budget than we had 2 years ago, 50% less full-time staff, rest of the high school sports, and we thank you for your support. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Portsmouth Fire Chief Chris LeClaire.
Good evening. I have been asked by the Fire Commission to present tonight. I'd like to introduce the Chair of the Board of Fire Commissioners, Richard Gamester, who is here tonight. Your Portsmouth Fire Department provides all the fire prevention, fire suppression, emergency medical services to the City of Portsmouth, along with hazardous materials coverage as part of the regional hazmat team, marine response with the city's fireboat. Currently, our organizational chart shows our staffing with 4 platoons and a 2-person fire prevention office, deputy chief in charge of prevention, and a fire inspector. There are 4 shifts, 14 personnel assigned per shift, covering the city's 3 fire stations, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This map shows our fire districts and the areas that they cover. We are very fortunate in the City of Portsmouth to have 3 fire stations, which keeps our response times very low to all incidents in the city. Current resources and staffing split up between the 3 stations. Currently, there are 5 personnel at Station 1 on duty, 3 on the engine, 2 on the ladder. Identical at Station 2, 3 on the engine downtown, 2 on the ambulance, 3 on the ladder at Station 2, and 2 on the ambulance. And there's 4 assigned at Station 3, but with minimum staffing at 13, there is usually 3 at Station 3. Our fire and EMS profile, we're pretty much split 50-50 between our fire and EMS responses. About a little over 2,800 emergency medical calls, a little over 2,600 fire calls. Our fire activity for 2010 is split up this way, with rescue being a large portion of it, service calls, fires, hazardous conditions, etc. District response fire, obviously District 1 is the busiest, most compact area, with District 3 being second busy and District 2 following close behind, and you can see the number of out-of-town responses we do just on fire. EMS patient disposition, of the over 2,800 calls, 70% of those are transported to the local hospitals, 30% are not transported. District response for EMS, similar to fire, Station 1 is the busiest. Again, population and density. Station 3 is close behind, second, and District 2 is right there with it. And again, our numbers going out of town. Incident volume over the last 4 years has spiked in 2010 over a steady increase for both fire and EMS requests. And again, the numbers in here include EMS transports, fires, car fires, motor vehicle accidents, boat fires, hazardous materials calls, all of that. Ambulance gross revenue, these are adjusted down by the time they get through finance, but as you can see, we're steadily increasing our revenues We have a billing policy where all transports will get billed, and then those bills will be followed up on, as opposed to years past where we had a soft billing policy, where people that were unable to pay weren't required to. Now with the new policy, you have to prove your hardship to get out of your bill. Fire Prevention and Inspection 2010 activity. As the council is aware that the city continues to grow, projects continue. Our Fire Prevention Division and the city's Inspection Division are extremely busy trying to keep up with projects, both new projects and renovations, and all of our public assembly permits. It's a very busy two-person office. We also are responsible for emergency management. I serve as the city's emergency management coordinator, working closely with my staff and the remainder of the city departments, working on the Seabrook Station plans. We're obviously in the 10-mile emergency planning zone for Seabrook Station, so the federal government comes in and grades us every other year on our ability to respond to an emergency at Seabrook Station. The city has an emergency operations plan that's updated regularly, along with a hazard mitigation plan that's in its currently under review. And if the city wants to be eligible for disaster relief or certain grants, we have to have both of those plans in place. Pandemic planning, flu, smallpox, SARS, any outbreak that might hit the city of Portsmouth, we're well suited and well prepared to handle that. We have point of distribution or pod plans if we have to inoculate the masses or get antibiotics out to all of the households in Portsmouth and the surrounding towns. We can do that. Portsmouth takes the lead in the Portsmouth Area Emergency Planning Team, which is a regional effort with Portsmouth, Newington, Newcastle, Greenland, Rye, and Northampton to make sure that we're doing pandemic planning, that we're all working together, and again, Portsmouth takes the lead on that. We're currently in the process of a seacoast evacuation and planning project to find out what are the best evacuation routes out of the entire seacoast area of New Hampshire, from Maine to Massachusetts, to get people away from the coast in the event of a large storm or other emergency, and to actually post those routes to move people away from danger. We're going to follow that up with a port security grant project, again another project funded by Homeland Security to study issues specific to the port and our waterfront and the hazardous cargo that moves up and down, along with critical infrastructure along the river and how to best protect that. Our annual budget for fiscal year 2012, as the city manager addressed, it is less than our funding in fiscal year 9. Fiscal year budget required in order to meet all of the step increases, retirement increases, health insurance, and workers' compensation increases would require a $6.967 million budget. Fiscal year budget was at $6,722,400. Our fiscal year 12 budget has been capped at the same amount, which means a disparity of about $245,000, or 3.6% less than the operating that has to be made up. If you add that to the $99,000 underfunded in fiscal year 11, it creates about a 5% decrease, or about $350,000. Our fire budget trend, we have continued to go down in the last 3 years. As I said, this fiscal year 12 and 11 appropriation is less than what we spent in fiscal year 9. Service impact options, obviously we're going to try to do creative. We'll leave one fire prevention position open for $100,000 savings. It still leaves us about $250,000 to make up. And this particular action will mean that our required inspection and investigation services will fall to the 50% achievement level it was back when we were a one-person fire prevention office not too long ago. Reduction of public education and prevention programs, and reduction of on-scene and emergency management staffing. You can see an organizational chart that would just eliminate the fire inspector, putting fire prevention and administration back to a one-person office. Other impacts, we add the vacancy and administrative plus the reduction of $244,000 in overtime costs. Most of the budget is personnel. The only area we have to cut is out of the overtime budget for a level funded budget to equal that $350,000 savings. It reduces our minimum staffing. Right now, as I said, we have 14 people assigned per shift, 13 minimum staffing. This budget will only allow for minimum staffing of 10. And with only 10 people on duty, Station 3 will be closed when staffing reaches those 10 people. Station 1 and 2 with 5 personnel each, 1 engine and 1 ambulance in Station 1, 1 engine, 1 ambulance in Station 2. That will be our minimum staffing. See what that looks like. The people that would normally work at Station 3 will be relocated, reassigned to between District 1 and District 2, and Station 3 will close. That's the presentation. I would like at this time to introduce the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Ed McDonough.
Good evening. The Portsmouth School Department is mission-driven to see that all of our students achieve at the highest levels. District staff are committed to working to ensure that every child makes continuous improvement from year to year. Since the advent of No Child Left Behind, there has been a significant shift in the expectation of our public schools. Where years ago we may have focused largely on teaching, today it is all about student learning and accountability for results. As a district, we are committed to working with every child to see that he or she achieves the skills necessary for future success. Oftentimes, this includes small group instruction and one-on-one intervention support. As I present the FY12 budget this evening, I am proud to say we are continuing to make great strides in delivering upon our mission. I'd like to quickly share with you some of the data that helps tell the story of the Portsmouth schools. The number of students who graduate from Portsmouth High School and continue their education has steadily increased over time. The 5-year average is 80%, and last year, 85% of graduates enrolled in a 4- or 2-year program. 12% of our graduates went on to the workforce, and 2% enlisted in the military. Roughly just under 1 in 4 children qualifies for free and reduced lunch, which is to say that 23.45% of our children come from an economically disadvantaged home environment. Yet when we look at student engagement, we find high numbers of our students who are actively engaged in school, as our average daily membership is just under 95%. The district offers a wide range of co- and extracurricular offerings that serves as a protective factor for all students. A decade of research has confirmed that children who participate in after-school programs can reap a host of positive benefits and achieve a number of interrelated outcomes: academic, social, emotional, prevention, health, and wellness. So be it athletics, be it music, drama, intramurals, or academic clubs, we have sustained these programs in this budget, for they are often the key link to a child's overall health and success. Next fall, we expect 2,645 children when school begins. 409 of them will require specially designed instruction in order to access the curriculum. As a district, we remain committed to developing the whole child. Over the past 7 years, the district has evidenced a steady decline in our dropout rate. Governor Lynch visited last month and commended the high school and Lister Academy on last year's annual rate of just over 0.25%, or really 3 students. And while we believe this low rate is yet another indicator of excellence, we know that this represents 3 students too many and that we need to work harder for them. In February of this year, the Center for American Progress issued a comparative study of districts by state where they examined educational productivity. The report attempts to identify districts that generate more relative achievement per dollar spent. While the study offers 3 different ways to measure a district's return on its investment, this screenshot taken directly from the report highlights Portsmouth. You will note that on this scale, the dark green represents the most productive districts, and happily, Portsmouth is ranked in this category on the predictive measure, which is to say, the Portsmouth schools perform far better than one would reasonably predict when you examine our actual achievement against our socio-economic reality. There's always something going on in the Portsmouth schools, and there's much to celebrate. I'd like to just highlight a few points of pride. On the facilities side, Our middle and high school students have enjoyed a new all-purpose turf field since last fall. In December, the high school received recognition from the Environmental Protection Agency as an Energy Star building, and we all eagerly await and are excited to see construction on the middle school begin later this spring. In terms of our students, we had 20 of our students travel to Nichinan, Japan, as they performed at a national cultural festival last July. In September, we continued the cultural exchange by hosting 20 students from Nichinan. Our middle school band and choir received gold and platinum medals, respectively, at the Great East Music Festival, and the Clipper Marching Band hosted this year's marching band competition on our new field and earned gold medals in all categories. This fall, our community enjoyed a first-rate production of The Sound of Music by our drama students, and since moving to a different athletic classification, Portsmouth has played in close to 30 championship games, earned 14 team sportsmanship awards, and has actually won 11 state championships. I think as a community, we can be proud of the opportunities that we provide our students, and to be sure they respond in kind and make us proud of their achievement. Our staff is incredibly dedicated to children. As you know, over 80% have advanced degrees, and most importantly, our staff have embraced our district's plan for large-scale improvement. Teachers are tracking performance at the individual student level. They're working collaboratively to provide interventions for those students who have not attained the standards, and they're developing extensions for those students who have already evidenced that they have the requisite skills. Individually, we have a number of staff who have some notable accomplishments. Middle school teacher Missy Provost presented at a national symposium on visual literacy using Web 2.0 tools. 2 high school science teachers, Dee Barrett and Kim McGlinchey, wrote and were awarded a grant to build a rain garden that will filter stormwater runoff before it enters Sagamore Creek. Tess Hall, a literacy specialist at Little Harbor School, is teaching coursework on differentiating reading instruction for special needs students at UNH. And of course, we're able to benefit from her expertise on a daily basis. And of course, band director Eric Gagnon was selected as a guest conductor with the Boston Pops. These are just a few of the examples of the dedicated and high-quality staff that we have working in our schools. The accountability demands of the federal law No Child Behind and the moral imperative that we ensure the growth of every student remains job one in the Portsmouth schools. While there are multiple assessments and many opportunities to track a district's performance, this slide looks at our statewide assessment data as well as the National Scholastic Aptitude Test in order to provide some key trend data. When looking at performance over time, progress is indicated when we see results track along the northeast curve. While these are only 2 of many assessment snapshots in reading and math we could share, it is clear that we are performing at high levels and that the district is indeed making sustained progress over time. The district core belief remains that all children can learn at high levels, and our strategy finds us focused on building a great instructional system, one where teachers will learn from one another and where success is replicated across classrooms. Excuse me a moment. Enrollments for the district have been stable over time. Over the past 10 years, the average district enrollment has been 2,647 students. Next fall, we expect to welcome 2,645, or 2 fewer students. As you can see by looking at the table on the left, we expect to see the height of an elementary enrollment bubble next year. Projections call for an increase of 5 students from 1,039 to 1,044 pupils. At the middle school, we expect to see a decline of 10 students across 3 grades to 474 pupils, and at the high school, we anticipate 1,107 students. The current FY11 budget stands at $36,904,000, with 85%, or some $31.3 million, attributable to salaries and benefits. In the fall, the school board, fully cognizant of the economic climate and in preparation for the budget cycle, determined that a status quo budget, which is to say, a budget that returned the same level of resources in FY12, would result in a budget of $38.8 million. In December, when the City Council adopted its budget guidelines, and most notably the requirement to submit a zero-based budget, it required the board essentially to eliminate $1.95 million from its status quo budget. So in January, the board held workshops, public hearings, and ultimately adopted a budget that met the City Council's guideline. The budget first and foremost sustains all programs and continues to support a personalized classroom for every learner. We achieved the budget by streamlining central office administration, realizing some savings through attrition, making adjustments in student support services, and utilizing the 2010 Federal Education Jobs Fund grant. What adjustments have been made? Well, we have reduced 11.93 full-time equivalent positions from the general fund. We adopted a model that combines the special services and Title I director's positions into one singular position, a director of pupil instruction and support. We believe this will help us build a coordinated system of support rather than parallel systems. Because of budget pressures, we're also trying to be creative with the Director of Technology position, but without losing our current technology integration momentum. We will continue to have network administrators, technicians, tech integrators, but we will fold the instructional leadership role of the technology director into the assistant superintendent's job description. These are reorganizational moves we believe will work and be successful for our students. They are based on some models we saw as we looked at other districts, but they do come, of course, with their own set of concerns. At the high school, we have made staffing adjustments in the automotive and art programs. We will have 1.5 full-time equivalent nurses, and next year we will go from 9 counselor positions to 8. As a result of schedule changes at the middle school and the development of intervention blocks, we're able to transfer 2 staff to the high school where there will be 2 retirements. And at the elementary schools, we have moved to 1 full-time counselor at each building, sustain the outreach paraprofessional at each building, and we will have 1 guidance counselor leading in the delivery of a curriculum component at each of our 3 elementary schools. So there, the professional staff goes from 6 full-time equivalents to 4. And finally, while this is outside the general fund budget, the district will also realize the loss of the 2-year stimulus funds, and will lose some budgetary support for a number of support personnel as well. This chart illustrates the adjustments that have been made since FY 2010. In short, while the schools were supported by 373.75 personnel in FY 10, the number recommended in FY 12 is 344.27, or a loss of some 29.48 full-time equivalent positions over the last 2 budget cycles. Every category, administrators, teachers, special programs, pupil support, clerical, paraprofessional, custodian, tech support, and maintenance have seen some level of adjustment. In short, this table shows a reduction of over 8% of the general fund workforce in the school department over the last 2 years. This slide simply compares the FY10 actual, current year FY11 budget with the FY12 proposal before the City Council, and aptly evidences the challenge the school board addressed in January in preparing this year's budget. I'll say it again, the board was able to reduce some $1.95 million from its status quo budget and adjusted some 11.93 full-time equivalent positions. So in conclusion, the school board has submitted a proposed budget that is responsive to the mandate of the council, and while we sustain all programs, quite frankly, we will begin to put significant pressure on the levels of student support that have helped us over time ensure that all children achieve. On behalf of the school department, I thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the good things going on in our schools and a brief explanation of our budget. We thank you in advance for your continued support of our children.
Thank you, Superintendent McDonough. This time, I'd like to discuss the revenue portion of the FY12 budget. As I mentioned earlier, the proposed FY12 budget was prepared with the goal of no tax increase. This goal was achieved. Maintaining the tax rate of $17.41 was not achieved without difficult decisions. The state continues to downshift costs to the local taxpayer. Additional decisions will have to be made by the City Council, which could affect the tax rate. The fiscal year 2012 proposed budget is presented amid a persistent difficult economy that has created problems that are compounding and threatening to cripple municipal and state governments nationwide, including our own state of New Hampshire. It is important to note that Portsmouth's equalized tax rate already is among the lowest in the state. The Tax Foundation's latest report ranked New Hampshire 44th out of 50 states in combined state and local tax burden. Comparing Portsmouth to other communities within New Hampshire reveals an even lower tax burden for local taxpayers, with the city's tax rate ranked 182nd out of 240 municipalities, according to the most current data available from the Department of Revenue Administration Services. Nonetheless, citizens of Portsmouth have become accustomed to a stable and predictable tax rate with a high level of services. The city has faced considerable challenges over the past few years in meeting those expectations, led by the reduction or loss of revenue we cannot hope to regain. Since fiscal year 2008, the city has suffered a 29% loss in state aid from the Shared Revenue Block Grant, Transition Aid, Meals and Rooms Tax, and Highway Block Grant, as illustrated in this chart. There is a looming threat of additional cuts at the state level that would downshift substantial costs onto the city and its property taxpayers. These may not be determined until the legislature completes its work in June. Therefore, we had no choice but to submit the city's fiscal year 2012 budget based on current law and general knowledge. The city's budgeting also remains affected by $1.1 million net change in revenues since fiscal year 8 from the loss of investment income and a decrease in motor vehicle registration revenue. For FY12, we are projecting a continued decrease in interest revenue on investments, as well as a reduction in tuition payments from area towns. In addition, we anticipate a fourth consecutive year of slow car and truck sales, which will affect city revenue from motor vehicle registrations. As you can see from the pie chart that's going on next, Alan, we have the pie chart that has the budgeted tax levy of 78%. Even in light of the aforementioned challenges, I'm recommending a tax rate of $17.41, which is identical to the rate that was adopted in fiscal year 11. This tax rate was achieved with numerous adjustments in the budget and expenditure reductions as well. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the departments, police, fire, school, and municipal, for their assistance with the budget, and hope that by working together we can continue to maintain the quality of life in Portsmouth that people have come to expect and enjoy. Thank you, and at this time I'd like to ask the mayor to come forward to convene the public hearing, and we'll take probably a couple minutes to make sure the screen goes up and ask the City Council to come forward, and we'll bring the lights up. Your Honor.
Thank you, John, and thank you to all department heads and city staff and employees for that fine presentation. At this time, I'm going to read the legal notice for this evening's public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Portsmouth City Council on Monday, April 11, 2011 at 7:00 p.m. at Portsmouth High School, Andrew Jarvis Drive, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on the proposed fiscal year July 1, 2011 through June 30, 2012 budget. The complete budget will be available for review in the office of the City Clerk, Portsmouth Public Library, and the city's website during regular business hours after 1:00 p.m. on Friday, April 8, 2011. Let me welcome everyone here from the public as well. And let me just briefly explain, as councilors can start to amble up if they wish to their seats, that I will go to the other seat in a moment and open the public hearing. The rules of the public hearing are as follows. You may speak as long as you wish on the subject of your choice. There will be one round of speaking, so that when you come forward and speak, that will be your opportunity to do so, and then there'll be an opportunity for someone else to do so. I would ask that you utilize the microphone and at least stay 2 or 3 people in line so that we can move along in a prompt fashion. I would also ask that you give your name, address, name and address when you make your remarks. And with that, I'm going to move to the other seating, and we'll open the public hearing in a moment. I would also say to city councilors at this time, so that you know, your microphones are all live. There are no cough switches. It is unlikely that most of you will have to speak during it, but sometimes, for whatever reason, it may happen. I would just ask that you be mindful that there are no cough switches. Those microphones are live. They have a good sound pickup, and so if you're rustling papers or anything of that nature, it may affect the sound quality of the recording. Once again, we're live on the web and we're live on channel 22. And with that, I'm going to change seats and we'll get started. I also wanted to make sure that everyone got a good opportunity to see Councilors Spear and Hetmanik down at that end of the dais. So with that, I will open the public hearing. Please also remember that this public hearing, once everyone has spoken this evening who wishes to speak, will be reconvened at the end of our work session process. So there will be another opportunity to speak to the public at a public hearing once the process has gone forward. And the date on that is May 9th. So that is when the public hearing will be reconvened. If people wish to speak and come out again after the work sessions have gone forward. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask anyone who wishes to speak to come forward to either of the two microphones. Please don't be shy, and we'd love to hear what it is you have to say. This side, Mr. Olson.
Oh, thank you. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the whole City Council and to the City Manager for presenting a proposal that is a flat budget. It's been a long time coming, much needed, and it is truly much appreciated. I'd also like to thank the department heads who I know, having spoken with some of them individually and part of Portsmouth Listens, how hard it is to make cuts when they're asked for. In my own personal experience in the private sector, it was always a very hard thing to do, whether it be budget, whether it be money or personnel. But having done that, and that would be the consolation I guess I could offer, is in my own experience, after having made cuts in different organizations, with innovation and commitment of the employees, I was able to build a more efficient and better organization, and I think that we'll see the same from the department heads here, even though we've had to make these cuts. I'd also like to give a special thanks to four councilors, Councilors Spear, Coviello, Kennedy, and Hetmanik, who have worked constantly over the course of the last year, over and over again, to help build a sustainable Portsmouth. But having said that about the budget, I am happy that it's flat, but I am still concerned. And I'm concerned because I do not think that the budget, even that we have it flat, is sustainable. If my math is right, and I may be wrong, we're going to see an increase of county spending and an increase in state spending because of overspending at other levels of government. Another reason that it's not sustainable is we've seen substantial increase over the past over 10 years here in Portsmouth. And we've also signed union contracts that give some city workers extraordinary benefits, far beyond what's seen in the rest of the community. So there's more work to be done. But I have hope, and I think there are three things that need to happen to really bring Portsmouth into a sustainable mode from its budget standpoint. The first is that I hope that the City Council will stick to the idea of a flat tax increase. And that may in fact mean going back to the department heads and saying we need to find some more because the county or the state has not done their share in helping keep the tax rate truly flat in Portsmouth. The second thing would be that the City Council take an aggressive stand in upcoming union negotiations. Many of the agreements that we have in place have just put us on a never-ending path of overspending due to the structure that's in place by those unions. So we need to carefully work those and make sure that we can get out of the overspending track that we're on. And the third hope is really more to the citizens of Portsmouth, and that they make sure they pay attention to what their state reps are doing up in Concord. My recommendation would be to support the overall of the state pension reforms that are being put in place there, because if those things are not fixed in Concord, we're going to be here again and again and burdened with extra costs coming down from the state and a constant decline in services. So thank you very much. That's all.
Mr. Olson, would you be kind enough to give us your full name and address for the record, please?
Sure, I'm sorry. My name is Norm Olson, Newcastle Avenue in Portsmouth.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Patrick Ellis, 235 McKinley Road. I also want to thank the department heads for their presentation tonight and for coming in with the budget that they did. I think it's important to echo on what Norm just mentioned. I think it's important to recognize that although we're at financially difficult times, the reality is that no matter what we do with our budget, we will be in the exact same position next year. If we cut the budget in half, next year our budget will go up by more than the rate of inflation to have the same services. That's a systemic issue that is in large part due to issues at the state. And I encourage the City Council and the City Manager to do all they can to encourage our senators and representatives to enact the changes that need to be made at the state level to help control costs, particularly on the retirement side. Healthcare is more of a federal issue, but obviously those costs going up 10% per year don't help anyone. Specifically on the department level, I'm standing here to advocate that you stay true to the budget that's been proposed by the school department. I'd say I'm somewhat content with the municipal department. I probably need to educate myself a little bit more about fire and police. Although there are some cuts that have been made at the school department level that do make me nervous. The school board and the administrators have done a lot of work to take a look at the potential impact. They feel that these cuts will not have a significant negative impact on our schools. That said, it really doesn't appear that there's much else that can be done without driving to the heart of the matter, increasing class sizes, or just eliminating programs altogether. So I ask you tonight to, as you deliberate on what the final budget will look like, that the school department budget, which came in at 0%, be kept that way. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd ask our next speaker to come forward. I'd also just take this opportunity to interject that the school board, many members of the school board are also present here this evening, and I wanted to point that out for the folks who are watching at home besides city staff, fire commission, and police commission members. Our next speaker.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Bill St. Laurent, 253 Colonial Drive, representing the Taxpayers Association. We at the Taxpayers Association want to commend the Council for working hard to keeping this budget at a level tax rate, and especially some of the councilors that jumped right in at times and said, "You're not working with us," and to some of the departments, and got the departments to finally come in and work together. So the presentations were good. They did show progress, that they're willing to work and help get this budget done. Unfortunately, our group only got the budget and everybody else Friday, so we haven't been able to really scrutinize a lot of the budget. So we'll be back, obviously, at your next public hearing with maybe a little more information. The Taxpayers Association obviously is a hard-hitting group. Although there is a level tax rate, We also understand that there's been a new tax assessment, and probably 80%, 70% of the people's taxes will still go up even with a flat rate. So people out there, don't think you're not going to get an increase. You're going to get an increase for some of you. That's beyond your control. I understand that, because there was a necessary evaluation that had to come about. But and there are other mentioned, as Mr. Olson said, that the state's going to be passing down some figures to us, and maybe even the county. So there's still a lot of work to be done between now and the deadline. And we'll be here. We're not going anywhere. We'll be looking at your budget. But we really do commend you for finally working. And this, unfortunately, economy is not going away. It just seems to hang on and hang on. And finally, and this council, whoever the next council will be, going to struggle through another one, I believe. I don't think we're going to see this end in any time in the near future. What the Taxpayers Association has done is put together a little packet of budget issues and background information. Now, it says on here for Portsmouth listeners, this was put together by the association, but some of this went to the Portsmouth listeners, so that's why you see that on there. So I'd like to give each one of you a copy of this, which was put together by some members of our group. Tedious work. It was a lot of work to do this, and it just goes to show the responsibility that we feel toward the city. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, they're very negative, but we work, we do something. We don't just get up here and holler for nothing and say, cut the taxes or be negative. We do our work, we do our homework. So we have a good group. So I'd like to present this tonight to you, and looking forward to come back at the next public hearing of the next budget. Thank you.
Bill, if you'd be kind enough to submit those to Judy, they'll hold on them and they'll get them to us. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, please. Does anyone care to rise and speak? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Rick Condon, 141 Madison Street. I just wanted to rise and ask you to support the fire department and fully fund the $244,000 that the fire chief is looking for. I spared you all the other people coming out again from last week, but last week you had overwhelming support from the public to maintain Station 3. You heard from several people from the hospital to encourage you that also, and I hope some way we can work between now and June to find a way to fully fund the fire department to keep the 3 stations open. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone else care to come forth and speak? Please come down and you may address us. I'll speak a little bit longer in slow tones in case anyone else wants to come down. Certainly you are most welcome to speak. Seeing no one else rise, I will now close the public hearing. I'm sorry. I'm going to leave the public hearing open, but we will reconvene it on May 9th, as we indicated, here at Portsmouth High School. And with that, I thank you for coming out this evening, to you and the folks at home, and please look for the budget workshops, which will be on the website for the City Council and the various departments as we go through this, and then everyone will have another opportunity to speak at the end of the process. Next week, we're beginning the first 2 of them. Thank you.